Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching from. Welcome today. It'll be an interesting morning. I have gutter cleaners coming today, so if there's a little bit of background noise, we're just going to go with the flow. Also, I forgot to do my titles that I normally do, so we're kind of going freestyle today, but that's okay. So we've got a lot of stuff going on actually. So we're gonna chat about all things travel. It was interesting actually being at the Hyatt Vivid a couple of weeks ago, and then seeing somebody else who does a lot of like reporting and stuff like that. She was at the Hyatt Vivid last week, and she was like, "Hey, welcome to the grand opening." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I haven't heard anything about this at all." Um, so yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the new rules that went into effect in the U.S. for flights for U.S. carriers that went into effect October 28th, so on Monday. We're also going to talk about the Visitax, as well as facial recognition technology and passport control, and kind of how that works, as well as a friendly reminder about passports and expirations, and how you kind of want to navigate that when you're coming up to a renewal. But before we get going, I'm curious where everybody is watching from, and what's your weather like where you are? Is it good? Is it bad? We've got another rainstorm coming in today. Yay. I miss the sunshine, that's for sure. Miss it's my sunny time in Cancun, miss my sunny time in Aruba. Well, Aruba was a bit over the top hot, but Cancun was great. And then flipping over to the other side and doing that Mexican cruise was a lot of fun and very interesting. Like I said last week, it was really interesting to see those cities, those tourist places, from the perspective of coming in on a cruise ship, as opposed to what I would normally have done, which is flown into the city and being able to, leisurely walk about and stuff like that. Oh, good morning, Christine. Snowing in the mountains. Ooh. Yeah, that's not great. But I guess it's okay if the mountains look white and snowy and fluffy, but you're just getting rain. That's not bad. So I don't know where Parker, Colorado is. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I know, what's the capital city? Gosh, I'm having a total brain melt today. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Okay, south of Denver. Okay. So you probably do get a lot of snow when it is that time of year, which is unfortunate. Nice to play in, not so nice to shovel, that's for sure. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, and my little light just died. Oh, we'll see how we go with that. Okay. Oh, and Angelo's here from Chicago. And you've converted. Thank you. 22. Holy moly. Well, that's nice. I'm glad you're getting some decent weather. It's by comparison about 8 degrees Celsius here, which I don't even know what that is in Fahrenheit. Probably 30, maybe 40. I don't know. I'm not really sure. So let's go ahead and I need my topics on the left so that I can know what we're talking about. Anyways, I've run through what we're going to talk about. So let's talk about this grand opening. Like I said, this little surprise grand opening at the Hyatt Vivid and what that means exactly. So those of you who have been following along the channel, you know that, of course, the Hyatt Vivid Grand Island opened on April 1st of this year, and it was a soft opening. And so we know with a soft opening that everything is kind of still in flux, and still in they're getting things up and running is the idea. Nice. Can we still say that? I don't know if we can still say that, but anyways. And if anybody's offended, then sorry. But anyways, moving on. So Hyatt Vivid, yeah. So like I said, I was there just 2 weeks, I think it was just 2 weeks ago, and on like the 9th and 10th, I think it was. And oh yeah, yeah. And then last week, one of the other agents or reporters, she was there doing some articles and stuff like that, and it was the grand opening, the official grand opening for Hyatt Vivid Grand Island, and also for Secrets Playa Blanca, which I didn't get a chance to go to because of stupid Hurricane Milton. But what does that mean? Well, so a couple of changes. So Hyatt Vivid just the other day announced that they have put there's locks now on the entry door into the Vantage Club Lounge. So it used to be that pretty much anybody could go in. They would sometimes verbally ask, what people's room number was, because they can tell by the floor which if you're in Vantage Club or not. So anyways, this has changed. So now you actually, on your room key card, when you go to tap in, it's either going to allow you in because you're Vantage Club and you are allowed to go in there, or you're not going to be allowed in. So that's a little bit of a change. I think we're also going to start to see that a lot more of the activities are going to start happening, that they've been advertising since before they opened. So Christine, you'll have to be our guide on that one and let us know. I think you're on 41 days countdown now, something like that. So yeah, you're gonna have to let us know if the what's happening with the activities and how much things have changed. I was able to do the Mediterranean breakfast, the a la carte breakfast for Vantage Club guests, and that was very good. Not many people taking advantage of that, but I mean, the buffet has such good options as well. So it's a tough choice between them. I mean, if I was there for a week, I would definitely want to have that option, because it's just another option for breakfast. 43 days. Oh, it's close. It's close. So yeah, exciting times. So yeah, with the grand opening, what most resorts will do is the idea is to have everything pretty much operational and fully in the works by the time the grand opening happens. So like I said, I haven't been there since this has happened last week. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what is different. But like I said, the soft opening, pretty much you have to expect that things will not be 100% perfect. So now that they have done the official grand opening, I think we'll start to see some stuff worked out. Now, that having been said, I've read a few rumors in the Facebook fan group. I mean, there's the perpetual question of whether or not the rooftop pool is going to be at some point specifically and only for Vantage Club guests. I have said this repeatedly, like sometimes at the hotels, they'll tell me things and I'll be like, oh, okay, can I share this? It's like, no, this is just for your information. But please don't say anything because it hasn't been announced yet. And I mean, these people are at risk of potentially losing their jobs if they let something slip and to me, for example, and then I tell it to you and it wasn't supposed to be said, or maybe the resort was kind of thinking this was the direction they'd go, but then they changed their mind. So yes, a lot of times I do get insider info ahead of, what the public hears, but I will say, hand on heart, not once did anyone ever allude to the fact that the rooftop pool would be Vantage Club only. There's talk about the beach club, whether that would be adult only, whether they would build something separate for the Dreams people. There's been a lot of back and forth on that, but never have I ever heard anything about the rooftop pool. And that is one of their key selling points for that property, is that they've got it's the longest rooftop pool in Cancun. They'd like to say it's the longest rooftop pool in the Caribbean. Technically, it's not. There is a longer pool in Grenada by 34 feet, but it's pretty close. Sorry, no, 295, 33, 38 feet. But it's, it's pretty close. Yeah, because that's been one of their key selling points for that property. I really don't see that ever changing. So let's just squash that one right now. I mean, who knows? I've been wrong before. I will be wrong again. Hopefully it's not about this thing, but we'll see. The other thing that I've heard is that they have purchased a property beside the beach club, and that they are going to be making that into a beach club for the dreams people, so the family friendly side. And as you have probably heard, there is construction on the one side. Rumor has it that that's going to be another RIU property, RIU all inclusive. I don't know if it will be adults only, if it's going to be a elite club resort, or if it's going to be family friendly. I have no information on that. I will say it's pretty early days in construction. So they've been counteracting the construction noise by having, I think they've had a DJ there and live music and stuff like that. So that has helped. When I was there, they were prepping for Hurricane Milton. So they were actually putting a bunch of stuff away. They didn't have the music on because they were actually closing up the beach club. So it's difficult to say, to tell how well that would be masking the noise. But from what I've heard on the Facebook group, it seems to be doing a not too bad of a job. But again, Christine, you're our eyes and ears on the ground for this one in 43 days. So looking forward to that. But like I said, so with the beach club as it stands, as you face the ocean to the right, and where it is on Playa Delfines, again, facing the ocean. The beach club is on the far right side of the beach of Playa Delfines. There was an empty lot, and then there was the Crown Paradise, I think, hotel, one of the more mid-range brands, like 3-star brands. And in between those is where the RIU is being constructed. And I have no idea if it's going to be a high-rise, low-rise, no idea. To the left, facing the ocean, to the left of the Vivid Beach Club is where they are rumored to be building the beach club for the dream side. So that will obviously be, I presume it will be family friendly. They are also putting in a water park. That's confirmed. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you that or not. Cat's out of the bag now. But that is the idea with that, is that it's meant to keep the kids more desiring to be on at the hotel as opposed to going to the beach side. But we'll see. Christine saying Adela's rooftop pool is for club level only. Yeah, but see, the thing is, and what else? There was another one that somebody was talking about. So, okay, Breathless Soul Cancun, they have a rooftop pool. Well, they kind of have two rooftops. So one's a low-rise building. That's like 5 floors, I think, 6 floors. And the other one is a high-rise building. It's like 17 floors, I think. On the top of the high-rise building is a rooftop pool, and that is Exhale Club, Preferred Club, call it what you like. That's their restricted one, so that's only for people booked in that specific category. The low-rise pool, rooftop pool, that one is for everybody. And that one's got a DJ and go-go dancers and all kinds of crazy stuff. But so that's another property where they've done that. Also, I mean, technically, Breathless Cancun, Secrets Divine is what I meant to say. Secrets Divine technically does have one pool on the rooftop, which is adults only. But heck, all their pools are kind of rooftop-ish. So, is it much of a difference? Not really. It's like there's multiple tiered pools at that property. So yeah, but like I said, those properties where they've had that distinction of the rooftop pool being just for a certain category of guests, that has been the distinction from the very beginning. And I understand that Hyatt Vivid is sort of finding its way But I would be really surprised now that they've got all these active bookings if they would be making a big change like that. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, this is just a rumor, but, again, we talked about this last week that they've been really good at, pivoting and making changes based on the feedback that they're getting from the guests. So it would make sense to me that this is probably true, but time will tell. So yeah, Christine, you'll have to do a little sleuthing for us when you're there. I'm hoping to go back next year at some point. And again, it'll be interesting to see, but definitely not going to be. But I'd say definitely, but who knows, right? Anything could happen. But I seriously doubt that I'd be there before the end of this year. So Christine will have to give us the updates. Okay, so let's talk about this new rule, what do they call it? The final rule that came out on Monday, the October 28th. And this is for US flights. I don't recall a distinction whether it's US based flights, US departing flights, or US airlines. But what they've basically said is if it's a domestic flight and you are delayed by 3 hours or more, if it's an international flight and you are delayed by 6 hours or more, you are automatically entitled to a refund. Now, there is some debate out there as to whether or not, if they say your flight from Las Vegas to Sacramento is delayed by 4 hours, but after those 4 hours, we are going to put you on a flight to get you to LA, to get you to Sacramento, then if they are making it right, are you still entitled to a refund or compensation? From what I've read of it, it sounds like yes, you would. If you're delayed by an hour, then no, you're not entitled to anything. But if you're delayed, if it's considered a severe delay, and this is part of the thing with this new ruling, is that it has a distinction on what is defined as a severe delay. But here's the thing. So let's say you're flying, a better example would be Chicago to LA. If you're flying from Chicago to LA and there's a massive, massive snowstorm and you're delayed for 6 hours or more, there's no flights going out that day, then what happens then? Do they say, well, we'll put you on a plane tomorrow? And if so, are you still entitled to any kind of compensation? Again, my interpretation of that rule is that yes, you would be, because although they say you're entitled to a refund, or the airline must refund you automatically within a very specific amount of days, depending on how you booked it. But they automatically have to do this. But it says, or they have to rebook you on another flight. But then if you read further along the actual formal ruling, it says that the idea of this is that it's meant to provide some compensation for people who are severely delayed. And okay, so you can still question this, right? And I've had some debates about this in the last couple of days. Now, if you read further into the ruling, it also says that if your bags are delayed, and this one's a funny one, for domestic flight, if your bag's delayed by 12 hours or more, and if your international flight bags are delayed by 15 to 30 hours or more, and I don't know where the 15 to 30, how that's calculated. If it's delayed more than that, then you're automatically to be refunded your bag fees that you paid to check a bag. But, and again, this is part of the discussion that's been happening over the last few days. What if it's what if it's not anything to do with the airline? What if it's the guys at the airport, guys or girls, women who work at the airport? What if they're slow? What if the bags fall off the ramp? That's got nothing to do with the airline. In most scenarios, most airports, the people who unload the bags and get them to the whatever the thing is called, where your bags are going to be collected, that's usually airport staff. So, again, why would the airline have to be responsible for that payment? And then is the airline going to countersue the specific airport where there's perpetual delays? I don't know. That's an interesting one. But that is going to be the compensation happens regardless of the reason. Same thing is if you're on a flight and it's meant to have complimentary Wi-Fi or complimentary, seat back TV and entertainment. If that's not working, you're meant to get some kind of refund. I don't know how much, that wasn't stipulated, but the idea is that the government stepped in and they wanted to remove the hassle of travelers having to negotiate with the airlines or whomever to get fair treatment. So this is all meant to happen automatically. So we'll see how this rolls out over the next few weeks. I can tell you right now, it will result in higher priced fares. There's no way around it. If an airport specifically, if a specific airport always has issues with bag delays, then that's going to become a financial hazard for any airline that flies into that airport. If there's an airport that has issues with the air traffic control where they're perpetually delaying people from departing, then what are airlines going to do? Are they going to start to change their routes? I mean, if they don't, and if my interpretation is correct, and if you are delayed more than 3 hours on a domestic flight or more than 6 hours for an international flight, that's a lot of revenue that the airlines are going to be losing. So it's inevitable that fares will increase to offset these costs, that these fines, these compensation that the airlines are going to have to pay to travelers. So we'll see on that one, but mark my words, fares will go up. So pro tip, book now. If you've got travel coming up and you haven't booked your flights, especially, spring break, that is just around the corner. It may seem like it's a long ways away. We've got Halloween coming up tomorrow. And then Christmas, for those who celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever your flavor of the month is. These are all things that are coming up. If you do not have your flights booked, book them now, folks, because those prices will increase. Mark my words. Okay, next topic. Let's talk about Visitax. There's been a lot of people talking about this over the last week or so, couple of weeks, really. They announced before I went to Cancun, and I flew in on the 5th of October, that this month would be the crackdown month when they would really start to enforce Visitax. We arrived very late into the terminal. Our flight arrived at 7:00 at night, I believe it was, that was the scheduled time. But I did not see anybody asking about Visitax, although I told you last week I was one of the ones who was pulled aside and they checked my bag. I did not have my iPad and my laptop with me, so I didn't have any risk of that. Now that that's been removed, we know where the restriction was that you could have one computing device, either a tablet or a laptop, but not both. But Visitax, I have heard extensively that people are getting more so asked to provide proof of purchase, a proof of the Visitax purchase. They're asked to provide proof of payment upon entry. So before you even go and get your bags, there are people out there with the boards. They've got their computing device, and they are checking to see if you've paid the Visitax. If you haven't, they are asking you to pay it right then and there. And look, when you're leaving, there's the stress about getting on the plane and all this kind of stuff. When you're arriving, there's the stress of you're excited to be on vacation. You don't want anything to cut into that time. You don't want any delays between where you are and getting to the hotel. And getting in the pool, getting on the beach, having a beer, getting something to eat, all of those great things. But they are asking for it, and they're asking most people, is what I've heard. So just be aware. If you're one of these people who has been a naysayer for the past several years, it is mandatory, and it's just going to cause you hassles if you don't prepay it. So be forewarned. I wanted to talk about facial recognition and passport control. I don't think I mentioned this last week when we were, when I guess I flew from Cancun into LA, and that was pretty breezy. Although I have Nexus, which is like Clear or TSA pre-check, so all very similar. That was all pretty smooth. I've been on cruises before, and that's usually not so smooth. But in LA at Long Beach, where Princess Cruises comes in and out, they were doing facial recognition technology. So you basically walked up to this machine. It took your picture of your face, and it matched that to the passport, which obviously you had used to go on the cruise. And it was like 3 seconds, and away we went. It was the fastest, most efficient system I have ever come across. There's people who want to be off the grid and all that kind of stuff. For people like that, travel is really not going to be your thing. But for the rest of us who understand that this is just a part and parcel of traveling these days, it was pretty cool to go through the system that quickly. Now, I don't understand exactly all the technology behind the facial recognition stuff. I'm sure there's some margin of error. Same with if you've got a name that's similar to somebody who is, if your name is similar to somebody who's already been listed on a no-fly list, then you can get what's called a redress number. And what this is, it's a specific code for you. When you book a flight, you put this redress number in, and it basically signifies to the TSA that you're not that, well, I wouldn't say bad person, but you're not that other person. You are somebody different. So it removes that confusion. But and I'm sure there will be something similar with the facial recognition technology, where if your bone structure something, if you've got a twin out there somewhere, a doppelganger who you're maybe not related to, but somehow have the same facial structure, I'm sure there's going to be some way to isolate and make an indication that you're not that other person. But I tell you, it was so efficient. Crazy efficient. So I think it was a pretty cool thing, but I don't know what you guys think. Like, are we just getting lackadaisical about how much of our personal information is being captured? Every time you go to a hotel in Mexico, Europe, most in the Caribbean, and most hotels, the first thing that they're going to ask you for is your passport, and they're going to take a photocopy of it. So, for all the people who didn't want to get all these apps and stuff like that to travel post-COVID, like, your information's out there. How much do you worry about it? I don't know. If any of you work in security business or digital security, maybe you could chime in on this. Should we be concerned? Are we just being lax about how much of our information is out there? I don't know. To me, it's sort of like, don't travel because you don't want your information out there. I'm like, travel. Well, I guess the travel would win because it would be the heavier one if we're talking scale. But for me, that's a trade-off that I'm willing to take. But let me know what you guys think. Am I the one who's being lax and foolish about all this? So on that note, I wanted to talk about passports. Again, sort of friendly reminder that like, my passport's up for renewal next year. And a lot of countries that you go to, actually the majority are 3 months or less that your passport has to be valid past date of departure. Countries like Mexico, it's got to be valid for the duration of your travel. But there's other countries where it might be required to be 6 months or more, 6 months, minimum of 6 months validity on your passport past day of departure. So if it's January 1st and your passport expires June 30th, then there's certain countries, there's certain airlines that will not let you go travel because it's got to be valid for longer than that. So sometimes you kind of have to look at your travel plans and find the window to do your passport renewal. For you guys in the States, I know your passport situation has been pretty brutal. I know it's getting better, but it's definitely something to consider. I mean, even in Canada here, it is, it can take a couple of weeks to get, and you're probably laughing if you're in the States, because I think at one point it was like 6 months or more to get your passport renewed. Obviously, it's a lot more if you're applying for a passport, but if you've already got one, doing the renewal is a lot faster. Angelo's chiming in. There we go. Saying, yeah. Oh, okay. So I didn't hear about that data breach. It doesn't surprise me though. I mean, they do happen a lot, unfortunately. Let me just put a credit freeze on the 3 credit bureaus we have in the USA. Oh, interesting. Yeah, and you know what? That's a good point, is that when you're traveling, it's good to have access to good amounts of money, because you just nobody plans for emergencies. Nobody plans for what if. So you should have access to money, but ideally a smart traveler is going to also have a card that they use, which is a low limit card. So, maybe you have 2 credit cards. The one that has a higher potential use, the higher credit limit, that one stays in the safe. And the one that you use when you check in, that kind of thing, for the deposit or security, whatever it's called, the security payment. Ideally, you want to use a low limit card for that, so $500 or $1,000 maximum, so that if somebody decides to steal that number and go to town with it, they're not going to get very far in town. I mean, they might get a couple of tanks of gas out of it, but they're not going to get much. Oh, okay, interesting. So Christine's saying you can renew your passports online now. Wow, you're way ahead of us. We don't have that. I mean, what can you do? No, you still have to drop off your passport at a passport office. So especially if you live somewhere remote, that becomes tricky. But I know, so here's the thing. And I part of the reason I brought this up is because, like I said, my passport's expiring next year. I've got my cruise with Explora happening in January, and that's a Caribbean cruise going to hit Guadeloupe, St. Kitts, St. Martin, St. Thomas, and Puerto Rico. And if any of those countries require your passport to be valid for 6 months or more, then that's not going to be a problem for me, because I do have at least 6 months of validity on my passport. But if I decided to go anywhere else immediately following that, then that would be potentially a concern. And the thing is, that country might have changed their restrictions, or it might have always been 3 months. But if the airline people, the gate agents, if they don't know what the rule is and they assume it's 6 months, you're not getting on the plane. I mean, you can argue it, and you can eventually probably escalate it. And if they cause you to miss your flight, you can probably fight your way into getting a replacement flight because they were in error. But it's whatever the airline rules are. So if you got to fly to wherever you're going, that can be a problem as well. So yeah, it's just worth, go and take a look at your passport for your family, check their passports, see when they're up for renewal. And, and like Christine said, if you can do the online renewal, that's a heck of a lot better than having it lapse and then trying to get do a new application. So that's definitely the smarter route to go. But definitely, go and check your passports and make sure that you've got at least 6 months of validity on them. Otherwise, now, pick your window between trips of when you want to go and get it renewed. You might have to take a 6-month hit on the renewal, but it's worth it just to not have to worry. And also, I don't know about the American programs, TSA PreCheck, Clear. I know there's quite a few others where you get expedited routing through security. But with the Canadian one, Nexus, and any of you who live on the border will probably be aware of this one, a Canadian border. But Nexus is a joint Canadian-US program where you are essentially pre-cleared. You go through this extensive profiling thing that they do in the background. And once you're approved, then you get fast-tracked through security. But if you renew your passport, then you have to go in and update your Nexus information. And I suspect it's probably the same with these other programs. If you have TSA PreCheck or whatever, if you update your passport, you probably have to go in and update on those systems as well. So just bear that in mind. Double check what you need to update, because there's nothing worse than getting to an airport and the security line is massive and not being able to use your free pass, your front of the line pass. It's something I'm very grateful for. The other thing I did want to talk about today and touch on briefly is Mazatlan and what's happening there. The Canadian government just yesterday, I believe, no, 2 days ago, announced that they've put out an advisory against non-essential travel for Canadians to Mazatlan. I haven't seen anything from the US government, but they're usually they usually have pretty similar thoughts on certain destinations and whether or not they should be on a restricted list. And so, like I said, the Canadian government has put Mazatlan in with this list. It's also like the whole Sinaloa region and stuff like that. Most of it is like more northern concern along the border, and this is all like cartel issues. When I was there 2 weeks ago and we did on the cruise and we stopped in Mazatlan, at that point there was no government warning, but I told you guys we did experience a peaceful protest. There were probably 3 spots where they were protesting, and it really stuffed up traffic. Like, it was brutal. To get a mile, it probably took us 20 minutes. We would have been faster off to walk, but it was just too hot. So, and beer in hand, we were quite happy just to be taking the slow road back to the ship. I assumed when I saw the travel warning that it was because of the protests, but in fact, it was due to what they're calling it as increased cartel activity. Now, and I'm on a couple of Mexican expat forums, so it's a lot of Canadians and Americans who live in Mazatlan. So one of the first things I did was go to the forum and check, what they're saying. Is it sort of business as usual, or is there, is it kind of scary times? Whenever if there's gangs that are acting up and stuff like that. No matter which city you live in. I mean, and I think it was 2012 here in Vancouver, in the city of Surrey, there were a ton of shootings. Our gang people don't seem to be able to aim very well, so they weren't shooting each other, but they were just shooting at things. They were trying to shoot at each other, but they were missing. So consequently, because nobody was shooting each other and actually hitting them, it went on for quite some time. In Mexico, they seem to have better skill sets so for this sort of thing. But apparently there was a shooting on the Malecon, or a murder on the Malecon a couple of days ago. And I was telling somebody about it, and they kind of rolled their eyes and said, well, here in Vancouver, how many shootings do we have a day? You're not going to put out a regional warning. Don't come to Vancouver. Don't take an Alaska cruise. Don't go to Whistler and go skiing because somebody was shot yesterday in Vancouver. I mean, seriously. So would I be concerned about going to Mazatlan? Not really, other than, here's the catch. If you're a Canadian and you go to Mazatlan, if you're an American, you go to Mazatlan, slightly different because the government hasn't, not that I'm aware of, hasn't issued a regional warning yet. If they do, then you'll be in the same boat as us Canadians, whereby if you, as a Canadian, have travel insurance and then you go to one of those regions where they're advising against non-essential travel, you go there on vacation, you go there because you rented a house, you go there to get out of the rain and the cold weather. If you go and something happens, your travel insurance likely will be invalid. So just bear that in mind. I mean, if you go there and you're there for a month, let's say you go there tomorrow and you're there for a month and there's nothing happening that you've seen. I mean, there might be stuff going on in the back, but if there's nothing you've seen and you feel very safe, but you're walking along the sidewalk and you're looking around and you trip, because sometimes the sidewalks in Mexico are uneven or could have cracks in them, not unlike any other major city. You trip and you fall and you break your ankle or you scratch your knee and you need stitches. Well, your travel medical insurance may not be valid. It may not cover you because you've gone to a place where they've suggested non-essential travel shouldn't happen. So just bear that in mind. If you're an American and you're planning on going to Mazatlan, keep an eye on that, on any travel restrictions, any travel warnings. And if you're a Canadian, probably best not. And it's kind of sad because I was talking to somebody who was looking at going to Mazatlan to the Dreams Estrella del Mar, which if you've looked on a map, it's a good 15-20 minute drive south of Mazatlan, in downtown Mazatlan. It's probably as far from downtown Mazatlan as the Rio Emerald Bay is, which is north of Mazatlan. They're probably equidistant to downtown Mazatlan. But if you wanted to go to the Dreams, that's still within that region where they've got the warning. So again, your travel insurance would be invalidated if you were to go. And it's funny because we still have airlines who are actively taking people down there. You would, generally speaking, in the past, when there's a travel warning, they stop the flights. So maybe they didn't get the memo. I don't know. But it's kind of odd. But yeah, just wanted to give that little heads up. I thought Mazatlan was a beautiful city, very clean, very interesting. A lot of cultural history there. The food market is fascinating. It's kind of like Seattle's Pike Market, where you've got fresh fish and like tons of it, and it's all like on proper like frozen shelves and stuff like that. So it's all kept very sanitary. Very to temperature. There's a chicken section, there's a beef section. So people they're getting their fresh meat carved up. They've got a vegetable section. They've got a little knick-knacky section where you can get like crappy souvenirs and stuff like that. Clothing, you name it. Like it's really interesting. And then of course the Malecon is just beautiful. And going there with 4 people who had never been to Mazatlan before and taking them to the Malecon, it was not at all what they expected, which was our reaction when we went last year, that Mazatlan is actually really, really beautiful and a very interesting place to see. A couple other YouTubers have done a lot of really interesting videos. He Goes, She Goes. They're one of my favorite YouTube couples. They went there and they did some interesting videos. Also, Country Collectors, who sadly are no longer together, but they did some interesting videos of Mazatlan. They, in fact, took the slow boat ferry from Mazatlan over to Baja California to, where did it go? I cannot remember the name of the city, but it's north of Cabo San Lucas. Can anybody remember? It's like a smaller resort town on the opposite side of where Hotel California is, on the east side of Baja California. I cannot remember the name, but they took the ferry across. It's like an overnight ferry. Apparently can be a very rocky kind of sailing, not necessarily advisable, but kind of a neat way to do a 2-destination trip. Go to Mazatlan first, then Cabo, or vice versa. I don't know, could be interesting, but yeah. But anyways, Country Collectors or He Goes, She Goes, both of them did a series of videos on Mazatlan. And I recall, especially with He Goes, She Goes, they were walking around downtown. And I said to my husband, like, okay, they're walking around this residential area. I said, look how clean those streets are. I mean, even, where I live, you're going to find McDonald's wrappers and, other fast food stuff on the ground. People throw away their this, that packaging, whatever, beer cans. I just didn't see that in Mazatlan. Not when I was watching the videos, and also not when I was there twice that I've been there. Here we go. La Paz. I think it's La Paz. It's definitely in that area. And I haven't been to La Paz. Tammy, I think if you're watching, I think you did a trip there one time. Not for very long, but I think you did get to see it. And I recall that if it was you that did it, said it was just gorgeous there. Like the beach it's on the lee side of the peninsula, so it's all very calm and stuff like that. I'm going to say one thing though. It was interesting when we were there that I saw seaweed. I've not seen. Oh yeah, it was okay. Yeah, but Tam, you remember when we were in Mazatlan and we were by the Malecon, and I was like, where is the seafood? Where is the seaweed coming from? It was genuinely bizarre. Maybe more like algae. Okay, so not so much the stringy stuff, but it was surprising to see. And maybe that's to do with the temperature of the water. I don't know. But I was curious. Okay, that's kind of a wrap for everything today. I didn't think I would have this much material, but there's been a lot going on, and not having my structured topics today, a little meandering. I don't know. It's not too bad. I think it kind of kept on track a little bit, maybe even a little bit better than normal. I don't know. It's hard to say. Yeah, no, that's for sure. Holy moly. Tell you what, I have seen sometimes at different resorts. I mean, like the Blue Bay Grand Esmeralda. If there's a chance of seaweed in the area, they'll have tons of it. It's just one of those things. Every single time that and he's usually been with Tammy, every single time that we've walked past that resort, it's just chock-a-block. And I mean, it's always one of the cheapest all-inclusives that you can go to in Mexico. Well, there's a reason. I know lots of people who've stayed there, and they say that the resort is great. If you're a beach person, this is not the resort for you. That is 100% for sure. But anyways, yeah. So going to be back on next Wednesday, 10 a.m. like normal, and hopefully no issues. Yeah, we managed to pull this one off pretty well, so it's all good. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you have a great week ahead of you, and we will be back here next Wednesday, 10 a.m. Oh, is it time change this weekend? Well, it doesn't matter. It's still going to be 10 a.m. Pacific, which is 1 p.m. Eastern. Actually, I don't even know what that is, because Britain does, UK does time change before we do. So you might already be ahead. It might be 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock. I don't know. But sadly, yes, we are still doing the time change. Hopefully next year, our government, the governments who are in charge of this stuff, can all get their act together, and we can stop doing the time change. I would be quite happy to stay on daylight savings time year round. That's my personal opinion. Let me know if you think differently. But I just don't see any reason to be getting up. If we're going to switch to 1, and switching to standard time, in my opinion, is not the way to go, because it would mean the end of, for us, it would pretty much mean the end of evening sports like baseball, soccer, that kind of thing. And quite frankly, if the birds start chirping at 3:30 in the morning, then that would mean they start chirping at 2:30 in the morning. And to that, I say no. So, but we'll see. Time will tell. We've already, in British Columbia, we've already voted that when at the federal level, it's decided that we're going to go ahead, we are a go. So I'm excited about that. But for now, I think it's next week we're doing the time change. It is what it is, right? So anyways, hope you guys have a great week. Thanks very much for tuning in today. Really appreciate it. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and hit that like button. Really appreciate it. Really helps out the channel. Any less comments also helps out the channel, even if it's just to say bye-bye. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next weekend. Oh, and also lots more videos coming up about my trip to Cancun, and also to the cruise and stuff like that. Plus, I still have some Aruba videos to bring out to you. So stay tuned for much more of that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.